lost his mother as a child, faced rejection, and carried pain for years. But Hugh Jackman turned every scar into strength, every fear into faith. There's something magnetic about Hugh Jackman. He doesn't just play heroes, he lives like one. But not because his life was easy or perfect. His journey began far from the red carpets and flashing cameras in the quiet suburbs of Sydney, Australia, where a young boy learned early that life doesn't always go as planned. He once said, "Bravery is feeling fear, but doing it anyway." That single sentence defines his entire life, because behind the charm and the laughter, behind Wolverine's claws and Broadway's spotlight, lies a story about courage, loss, faith, and relentless self-belief. Hugh Michael Jackman was born in 1968, the youngest of 5 children. His parents were English immigrants trying to build a life in Australia. For a while, the family was whole, full of laughter and warmth. But when Hugh was 8, everything changed. His parents separated. His mother, overwhelmed and struggling, returned to England, leaving Hugh and his siblings with their father, Christopher. He remembers waking up one morning, walking into the kitchen, and realizing she was gone. He described that moment as the day my childhood ended. It was his first heartbreak, and it shaped everything that came after. He grew up missing his mother, craving stability, and questioning why people leave. But rather than becoming bitter, he turned that pain into empathy. It became the emotional depth you see in his characters, that mix of strength and vulnerability that connects to millions. He said often that his father was his anchor, a man of discipline, faith, and quiet endurance. "My dad taught me that true strength is gentle," Hugh once said. Watching his father raise 5 kids alone gave him a living example of resilience, not the loud, cinematic kind, but the quiet kind that holds everything together when it's falling apart. As a teenager, Hugh was athletic and full of energy, but he didn't stand out. He wasn't the best student or the most popular. He studied journalism in college, planning for a normal life. But deep down, he wanted something more, something that lit him up. That's when he stumbled into acting. On a whim, he took a drama class during his final year at university. One performance later, he felt something he'd never felt before: peace. "When I acted," he said, "it was like the world made sense for the first time." But the dream didn't come easy. After university, he couldn't afford acting school, so he worked odd jobs to save up. When he finally got into the Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts, he was older than most students, broke, and filled with self-doubt. He remembers thinking, "Everyone else is better than me." But that humility became his strength. He worked harder than anyone, first in, last out, always curious, always learning. He often tells young actors, "Preparation gives you confidence. If you've done the work, fear has no room to live." And that's how he lived. After graduating, he started acting in Australian TV shows and stage productions. He was talented, but far from famous. He performed in small theaters for little pay, pouring his heart into every role. When the opportunities were small, he made his performance big. He believed that excellence attracts opportunity even when no one's watching. Then, in 1998, came the audition that would change his life forever. Hollywood was casting for a new superhero movie called X-Men. The role of Wolverine was already filled. But when the original actor dropped out at the last minute, they brought in Hugh Jackman, a relatively unknown Australian theater actor, as a replacement. He had 1 week to prepare, 1 week to step into a role that would define modern cinema. When he showed up on set, nervous and unsure, director Bryan Singer reportedly told him, "You're too polite. Wolverine is an animal." Hugh nodded, went home, and started studying wolves. He changed his physicality, his breathing, his eyes, everything. When he came back to set, the transformation was complete. That performance changed his life forever. X-Men exploded at the box office, and Hugh Jackman became a global phenomenon overnight. But what's more important is how he handled that fame, with grace. He stayed humble, approachable, and deeply grateful. "Fame is like fire," he once said. "It can cook your food or burn your house down." He never let it burn him. Instead of chasing the Hollywood machine, he chose balance. He continued acting on stage, performing musical theater, taking roles that scared him: Les Miserables, The Prestige, The Greatest Showman. Each one revealed a new layer of his artistry. He became one of the few actors who could sing, dance, fight, and make you cry, all in one scene. But what the audience sees as talent, Hugh calls discipline. He wakes up early, trains daily, meditates, journals, and keeps his focus sharp. He says, "If you fill your day with purpose, fear has nowhere to sit." That's not just advice, that's a lifestyle. But Hugh's success isn't measured in awards or fame. It's measured in balance, the way he holds career and family in harmony. He met his wife, Deborah Lee Furness, in 1995, long before he was famous. They married a year later, and nearly 3 decades on, he still calls her his greatest blessing. When asked about the secret to their marriage, he said, "We choose each other every day." That sentence reveals the core of Hugh Jackman's character: commitment. Whether it's work, love, or self-growth, he doesn't rely on emotion. He relies on decision. Commitment is the bridge between goals and growth. In his 20s and 30s, fame tested him. Hollywood offered temptation, distraction, ego, all the traps that destroy so many careers. But he stayed grounded in gratitude. "I remind myself every day that I get to do what I love," he said. "That's a privilege, not a right." The story of Hugh Jackman isn't just about talent, it's about integrity. He's proof that kindness and ambition can coexist, that you can be successful and still stay human. Behind every success was struggle. Behind every smile, scars. He's spoken openly about losing his mother as a child, about the confusion and loneliness that haunted him for years. But he also shared how forgiveness freed him. "Holding on to anger is like drinking poison," he said. "Forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you." That's the kind of wisdom that only pain can teach. In interviews, he often describes fear as his greatest teacher. Before every role, even after decades of success, he still feels nervous. But instead of fighting fear, he befriends it. "Fear means you're alive," he says. "If you're not scared, you're not growing." That attitude is why his career spans everything from superhero films to Broadway musicals to indie dramas. He doesn't chase comfort, he chases challenge. When you watch Hugh Jackman perform, you're not just watching an actor. You're watching a man who's turned pain into art, fear into fuel, and fame into a platform for kindness. He once said, "You can't live a positive life with a negative mind." That's not a slogan, it's survival. He's proof that gratitude isn't a personality trait. It's a practice. From the boy abandoned by his mother to the man adored by millions. Hugh Jackman's story is a reminder that real power isn't about dominance. It's about balance. Because strength isn't how loud you roar. It's how quietly you rise. When the world sees Hugh Jackman, they see charisma, talent, and discipline. But what they don't always see is the devotion behind it all. He's not just one of Hollywood's most respected actors. He's one of its most consistent human beings. And that consistency didn't come from luck or fame. It came from principles, from faith, from years of choosing to rise every single day, no matter how heavy the weight of life felt. He often says, "Success and failure are both imposters. What matters is what you learn." That perspective has guided him through every phase of his life. Even after 2 decades at the top, he refuses to define himself by applause. He knows that applause fades, but purpose doesn't. After The Greatest Showman, a movie that became a global anthem of hope, Hugh said that film wasn't just a role, it was a message. It told people that no matter who you are or where you come from, you're allowed to dream without apology. The song "This Is Me" became a statement of self-acceptance for millions. And Hugh said it moved him deeply because it mirrored his own journey. The boy who felt invisible, who grew into a man, learning to be seen without losing his soul. He admits that he used to chase perfection, always trying to be the best, to outdo his last performance. But as he grew older, he realized that chasing perfection was exhausting. "The goal isn't to be perfect," he said. "The goal is to be whole." And that's what changed his life. He started meditating daily, practicing mindfulness, focusing not on achievement, but alignment. He says meditation isn't about escaping the world. It's about entering it with clarity. It keeps him grounded in an industry built on chaos. That inner peace radiates through everything he does, from his interviews to his performances to his interactions with fans. People who meet Hugh Jackman always describe the same feeling: presence. When he talks to you, he's not half distracted or looking past you. He listens fully. That presence is his superpower. In a world obsessed with speed, he practices stillness. "The more success you have," he says, "the more humility you need." He learned that lesson through pain. Losing his father to Alzheimer's in 2021 was one of the hardest moments of his life. He called his dad the greatest man I've ever known. Even while his father's memory faded, Hugh said he never lost his kindness or his faith. Watching that taught him that legacy isn't built in achievements. It's built in how you treat people. His father's life became the blueprint for the kind of man Hugh wanted to be. That's why he often reminds his fans, "Be the kind of person who leaves people feeling better after they've met you." It's simple, but profound. In an age where everyone wants to be important, Hugh chooses to be kind. And that kindness has made him timeless. He once shared a story about performing on Broadway. After a show, a stagehand came up to him and said, "You're the same guy on stage that you are backstage." Hugh smiled and replied, "That's the goal." He doesn't perform kindness, he practices it. That's what makes him unforgettable. Professionally, he's continued to evolve. After years of playing superheroes and dramatic leads, he's leaned into roles that challenge emotion, not ego. In Prisoners, he showed the rage and grief of a father pushed to the edge. In Bad Education, he exposed the complexities of morality and deception. And in The Son, he portrayed the quiet devastation of a parent trying to understand his child's mental pain. Each role deeper, more vulnerable, more honest. Because that's where he believes real strength lives, in vulnerability. He said, "Being vulnerable doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're strong enough to be real." That line alone defines the modern meaning of masculinity. Strength with sensitivity, confidence without arrogance. When he talks about success, he doesn't use numbers or awards. He uses feelings. If what you're doing doesn't light you up, he says, then it's not your purpose. That's why he continues to choose projects that make him feel alive, art that matters, not just movies that sell. He sees creativity as a form of service. Every time you tell the truth through art, he said, you give someone else permission to do the same. But beyond the stage and screen, what defines Hugh Jackman most is gratitude. He journals every morning, writing down 3 things he's thankful for. He believes that gratitude rewires the brain. It changes how you see problems. When you're grateful, he said, you stop waiting for life to be perfect, and you start loving it as it is. He's also deeply spiritual, though not in a way that preaches. He believes faith is something you live quietly, not something you announce loudly. He once said, "Faith is trusting there's meaning, even when you don't see it yet." That trust carried him through rejection, heartbreak, and even illness. Despite fame, he's always stayed close to his roots. He returns to Australia often, spending time outdoors, away from Hollywood. He surfs, hikes, and enjoys the simplicity of life. He says, "Nature reminds me that I'm small, and that's a good thing." What's incredible about Hugh Jackman's journey is how balanced it is. He's achieved massive success, yet his greatest achievements are personal. Being a devoted husband, a loving father, and a humble human being. In interviews, he often tears up when talking about his children, Oscar and Ava. He says, "My kids don't care who Wolverine is. They just care if I'm home for dinner." That's perspective, the kind that keeps ambition in its proper place. In an industry built on illusion, Hugh has become a symbol of authenticity. He's the reminder that fame without humility is emptiness, and ambition without kindness is destruction. He's lived long enough to see that the real goal isn't to be successful, it's to be significant. He often tells young artists, don't chase being the best, chase being real. Because when you're real, you connect. And when you connect, you last. That's why his story isn't just about acting. It's about alignment. Alignment between your purpose, your actions, and your values. He believes that's the true definition of success. Living in harmony with who you really are. He once said, "When you know who you are, no one can take it from you." That's his truth, hard-earned through years of growth, faith, and self-reflection. At 50, 60, and beyond, Hugh Jackman continues to inspire millions, not by showing perfection, but by showing process. The work it takes to stay grounded when the world puts you on a pedestal. He's living proof that the greatest power is self-mastery. His journey from a boy abandoned by his mother to a man who brings joy to millions is a testament to one idea. Pain can be your greatest teacher if you don't let it become your master. He says, don't waste your pain. Use it. And he has. Every loss, every heartbreak, every doubt has become part of his art, his character, and his message. So what do we learn from Hugh Jackman? That success doesn't require losing your soul. That you can be powerful and kind, ambitious and humble, famous and still human. He reminds us that life isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. Because the real heroes don't wear claws or capes. They wake up every day, face their fears, love deeply, forgive quickly, and keep moving forward. And that's why Hugh Jackman isn't just a performer. He's a teacher of balance, a living lesson that greatness is not found in noise, but in quiet consistency. He once said, "If you focus on your light, you'll stop fearing the dark." That's the essence of his life. Living with light, sharing it, protecting it, and reminding the world that no amount of darkness can ever put it out.